DC, great to see you, man.
Thank you. Thank you guys for having me again.
How was the hospitality and treating you here on Fight Island?
Oh, it's fantastic. I mean, the way that the people have treated us here has been second to none. I couldn't have imagined. I heard stories of how good it was here, but this experience has exceeded every one of those stories.
What is it like for you now in your new role on the television, being around a big fight week like this? Because normally these weeks are about yourself. You're normally in these main events, aren't you?
Yeah, well, you know, I've always been a fan of the sport, right? So I just get excited. I'm pumped up, and you can actually feel it, right? I've been here for 2 weeks now, and there was a excitement in the air for Zombie versus Ortega.
Yeah.
But then it's like elevated whenever you get a pay-per-view main event for a championship. And I can feel it, you know, and I'm not a guy that's out and about at the beach or anything. You know, I'm just in the hotel, and if I could feel it, I'm sure out there it's even crazier.
No, absolutely, man. Have you got itchy knuckles yet? Off the back of retirement?
Oh, no, I don't.
You don't?
I'm good, man. Me and Dana make jokes about what my workouts look in retirement. You know, there was like a big guy on a pole doing half-inch push-ups. Like, DC, you getting ready to fight again? I'm like, no, I'm good.
Does the main event at the weekend then for UFC 254 make this all the more special because one of your good friends is obviously involved in that main event?
Yeah, it's very special. You know, it's also a different task for me. Mm-hmm. Right? Because generally when I was fighting, I didn't call Velasquez, Rockhold, Nurmagomedov, any of those fights, right? I just didn't feel comfortable being in that situation because I didn't know if I could be fair to the opponent, right? You want to root, you want to cheer. So this is the first time that I've called a Khabib fight, and I'm excited about it. But I know that there will be nerves as he enters the octagon because you can't shut that off. You know, you can't take a 10-year relationship and say all of a sudden, because I'm not active anymore, I don't care for him as I did prior. So there will be nerves, but I know that I can do my job, and all I want to be is fair to Justin and fair to the competition.
We'll talk about the fight itself in a moment. I just want to talk about Khabib and your relationship with him because we loved all the things that we saw on social media, YouTube, a wonderful, wonderful relationship. But I want to take you all the way back to when you first met him and when he first strolled on into those mats at AKA. What are your first memories?
Just a kid that barely spoke any English, could say hi and bye. And see, we've been to Russia a lot of times, so we had a few words. You know, we had davai and something like hello, thank you. We had a lot of those words back then, and it was our way of kind of communicating with him. And then we all adopted that broken English type of style right as he started to learn. But my first memories of Khabib is him being a kid that wanted to learn and just a sponge, right? Couldn't speak very much, so he stood in the corner. And he always watched and observed. And as he gained more confidence in his abilities and also his ability to communicate, it just kept growing and growing and growing. I remember the first time he did an interview in English, it was at UFC Tonight, and he was sitting there in the green room telling me how nervous he was because he had never done an English interview. And I said, we talk every day in the gym, you'll be fine. And he did. And since then, he hasn't stopped talking.
That gym was obviously famous for the Three Kings.
Yes.
Is the Four Kings now?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, from the moment, you know, we called ourselves Three Kings because over the course of that year, back in 2014, 15, we all held the belt, you know, and that's something that's almost unheard of in fighting. And then Khabib was on his way up, and he was always kind of the little brother, right? Like the one that was going to take what we had done to the next level. And you see that, right? You see him exceed all the, break through the glass ceiling. Everything that we had done and set, he has shattered him completely and taken this thing to a level that nobody was ever able to reach. But when you think of gyms and you think of AKA, you think about the guys from before, you know, like it's the way it goes. Like Josh Koscheck and Mike Swick and John Fitch, those guys were all fighting together. And we thought, wow, this is good, right? We've got 3 top 10 welterweights. We've had 2 guys fight for a belt. How does it get better? Well, here comes that second wave. Kane, myself, and Luke, and we shattered that. And now look at what Khabib has done following us. But he won't be the last. There will be someone else that will do it at a level that's even bigger, and that's exactly what we always hope for out of our gym.
His fan base is obviously huge because of what he does inside that octagon, but you know him away from the octagon. The year that he's had has been horrific from a personal point of view. Talk to me about the mentality of this guy, because he would be forgiven to not be here this weekend and to not be fighting given the passing of his father.
Yeah, when that happened, it's like the only thing. I remember when his dad got sick and we talked a little bit, and I was so worried as to what could possibly happen, because you know how big a part of his life his father was. But then when we realized that it was COVID and it was bad, as you communicated with him, you try to say if you need anything. And honestly, Khabib's not a person that reaches out much to say, I need your help with anything. He's a strong man. That's another one of the lessons his dad taught him. And he wanted to fend for himself. And I remember when his dad passed, I constantly was reaching out and not getting any responses, which I probably didn't expect to, but I just wanted to be a friend and let him know that I was there. And eventually he reached out and we talked about family. We talked about how they're gonna move forward and everything. And it just showed his strength, because his dad was the pillar of not only their house, but that entire region in mixed martial arts. He was so much bigger than just the head of the Nurmagomedov household. And it's been taxing. But when he decided he was going to do this, I envisioned a way for him to be even more dominant, which is scary, right? Because for what he's done has been tremendous. But I said, wow, now that he has something more to fight for, who are we going to see in the octagon on Saturday?
Using that pain as energy going forward.
Yeah, you got to think, man, there are goals that you set out in life, right? And Khabib wanted to be a UFC champion. I remember him telling me back in the day, he goes, DC, one day I'm going to be 10-0 in the UFC champion, and make $10 million a fight. And me and the rest of the guys go, there's no way, nobody makes $10 million a fight. I'm pretty sure he's making that a fight now. But he became a global superstar.
Yeah.
And not only did he set those goals in those areas that he wanted to get, he did it alongside his father. And one of the things that they wanted to accomplish, the achievements, was to get to 30-0, right? To be 30-0 was one of the things that they came up with together. And now that he's fighting for that too, it's a scary proposition for the opposition.
He's only 2 away, and obviously this weekend he's number 29, and that is Justin Gaethje. How impressed have you been with Justin's rise in the UFC?
Man, let me tell you something. I remember sitting in that arena in Jacksonville in May, and he walked out there. And it was so odd, because now when you look at the UFC events in the middle of this quarantine, there are a lot of lights. It seems vibrant almost, right? Lene was there from the very start. But in Jacksonville, it was so dark. It was like the craziest, eeriest, darkest feeling, with the spotlight on the ring, on the octagon. That was it. Outside of that, it was very dark with very little lighting. So you had these athletes coming out to fight in this empty arena, the ViStar Arena, which is massive, right? Sits 15,000 people. And it was quiet. And you could hear Justin walk out with Trevor Whitman talking to him. And I was like, wow, I could feel like goosebumps. And then he went out there and he put on the performance of a lifetime. And I believed in that moment that I saw the best Justin Gaethje for two things. One, he's improving, which is scary. But two, fighting in that dark, empty arena where the crowd didn't get him all like crazy hyped to do some crazy stuff, he was able to follow the instruction. So I was like, wow. I believe this guy may be better under these circumstances. Wow. Remember in the fourth round, he was winning 4-0. He went to the corner. He's almost not even looking at Trevor anymore. He's like jittery, shaking, laughing, being like a madman, which is what Justin Gaethje is. And Trevor goes, stop. Remember last time you got arrogant? Right? Remember the last time you got arrogant? And Justin goes, okay. And then he sat forward, faced his coach, and went right back to work and got the finish. I thought in that moment, wow, this dude, I just watched the most scary guy for Khabib. Especially under these circumstances where there is no interruption, there is no fans, there is no catch every third, fourth word from Trevor, right? He's getting every single direction from his coach, and he follows him to a T.
Is this Khabib's toughest test in the UFC, do you think?
I think so. I think this is the toughest guy for him. Crazy though, toughness has been relative, because Khabib has made it not look so hard. So when you look at these fights, you think, wow, this guy's going to be very dangerous, and then he does what he does. But I just don't envision this with Justin. I think Justin is prepared. I think he's ready to go. I think that he has a background in wrestling that will in their minds, allow for him to stay standing, and that's where he has an advantage. Now, Khabib is no slouch on the feet. I need people to understand that. He can stand and box. He's got fantastic boxing. But we know Justin holds the advantage there. Everybody does. It's very clear.
Can I talk to you about the co-main as well? Because there's a great fight there between Robert Whittaker and Jared Cannonier. It's an interesting dynamic, this middleweight division, because you've got the champion calling out challenges. That doesn't necessarily always happen. The champion sits there and it's the challengers that call him out. And Izzy's basically targeted Jared Cannonier, hasn't he?
Well, I think Israel Adesanya has figured out that you have to go to the next thing. You don't win and disappear. You always stay a part of the narrative. You always stay a part of the story. Now, you would imagine that's how it is if you're the champion, but that's not necessarily the truth. How many times have you thought, and no knock on the guy, but since Petr Yan won the belt, he just left and kind of disappeared. So it's almost like out of sight, out of mind. It would be very good for him to address some of these challenges that are calling his name, or maybe say some stuff for himself, right? Henry Cejudo's retired, right? And still probably more on the front of people's minds than the new champ Petr Yan. Izzy understands that. You know, he's from a new age. And he stays in the front of your mind every time by doing that, by saying, Jared Cannonier, soul brother number one, I want to fight him if he dominates Robert Whittaker. But people keep going, oh, he wants to fight Jared Cannonier. But you understand that he said if he dominates Robert Whittaker. He didn't just say if he wins. If he dominates Robert Whittaker, you're next. So is the onus now on Jared Cannonier to go and put on an impressive performance, or can he just win? I think people kind of miss that when Izzy's talking about Jared.
We spoke about Khabib's unbelievable mental strength. Just on Robert Whittaker, because he had some time off.
Yeah.
He had a little bit of a rest and getting away from what he described as burnout. How impressed are you with his return, the performance against Darren Till, and to land himself in this fight, which many people would class as an eliminator now for a title?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love Robert Whittaker. I think he is everything a champion should be, right? He loves his family. He lives the right way. He trains hard. He does all the right things. Now, when he said he was burnt out, people don't understand what carrying the title of UFC champ is. It's hard. It's hard. It is a spotlight that is unforgiving, because if you make mistakes, you're in trouble. And so I get it. And not only was he carrying the belt in that way, in that regard, having kids, right? Because he was having babies all along that time, not being able to be there for his wife's pregnancies, and you know, he was preparing for fights. And then going to battle with Yoel Romero on multiple occasions, and going to battle with guys. So I understand where the burnout came from. He seems refreshed now, right? Kids are a little bit older. Family seems to be in good shape. Took some time off and time away.
They're expected again. He's having another one.
He's having another kid?
Yeah.
Whittaker's having another kid?
Yeah.
Oh, Whittaker's out of his mind. What am I talking about? I just had a kid at 41 years old. What is going on? But I'm retired, right? I got some time now. But yeah, like, it seems like everything is like right for him, and it's good to see him like that, because it does get heavy and it gets taxing. But Jared Cannonier is a beast. I mean, I didn't think Jared Cannonier could look leaner. I saw him on Embedded the other day. I was like, wow, the guy looks even leaner than before. He has truly committed himself to getting his body down to 185 and giving himself the best chance to chase down the UFC championship. It's a great fight.
It is a great fight. And that's obviously the main and co-main at UFC 204. Just a quick one on one of your old weight categories, light heavyweight. Obviously got a new champion in there, new European champion, so we're obviously high on that guy right now. But it seems that there's so many quality contenders in and around looking at that belt. It's going to be interesting to see how this all lays out over the next 12 months.
Yes, it's very interesting for Jan. But I watched Jan fight Dominic Reyes. I watched him fight Luke Rockhold. I watched him fight Corey Anderson. And I think to myself, wow, right? There's a lot of improvement there, and also a lot of self-confidence. Because when you start to take losses, it's hard to right the ship. Jan Blachowicz did that. He lost his UFC debut at light heavyweight, right? And then he's gone on a tear to become the champion and just dominated Dominic Reyes in a way that no one really expected. So he's got the belt, and just rightfully so, right? He has earned everything. And I think Jan Blachowicz is a story in persistence pays, right? Confidence pays. He didn't, switch teams and bail on all of his guys. He stuck with his guys, and they got it right. And that's a beautiful thing to see. Now, For 10 years, Jones and I held that belt. It was either him or it was either me. Let's see if this thing starts to get passed around like a hot potato, if Jan can keep his hold of it.
What's your gut instinct with it? Do you think there will be people like Rakic and maybe people moving up and down in weight and stuff?
Rakic is a good fighter.
Yeah.
He's a fantastic fighter, big, strong guy, tough, beat Anthony Smith. Glover Teixeira, scary guy at this point. At 42 years old, 41. It's amazing what Glover Teixeira has managed to do. Thiago Santos has to feel pretty good about Jan holding the belt right when he owns a win over him. So it's a very interesting weight class and exactly what it needs to be, because you know what? Having dominant champions is great, but after a decade, some new meat at the top of this division is not anything that people aren't excited about.
Who do you think will be champ then in 12, 18 months? And do you include Israel Adesanya in that mix?
I said that, and Jan got mad at me. Every time I say something, people want to fight me. But if I had to think to 18 months, I mean, honestly, I have no idea. Because I think Jan Blachowicz, if he continues to improve in the way that he has been, who's going to beat him? You know, but we don't know the improvements Thiago Santos has made. We don't know what Alexander Rakic can be. We don't know. We don't know what the kid that's fighting Ian Kutalaba, Ankalaev?
Yeah.
Antagulov, right?
Ankalaev is fighting Kutalaba.
Ian Kutalaba, Ankalaev, right?
Yeah.
Ankalaev, dude's a savage.
Yeah.
You don't know if 18 months he has won a couple top 10 fights and puts himself in position to fight for the championship. It's just a lot of different people that are at play here at 205. It's fun. But I mean, why not just say the champ? I mean, why not? Or maybe Jones. Maybe Jones goes back down. You never know. You know, Jones doesn't find success at heavyweight. He'll go back down to 205 and step right into a title fight. So,
do you think he will have success at heavyweight, John?
I think he'll be okay. I think he'll be fine. I think that I think right now's the time.
Yeah.
Because I believe that he has now shown that those guys, those young athletic guys at 205 are starting to catch up to him. And right now's the time, right? Time to go fight some guys that are a little bit slower, little less active. You know, he struggled with the activity of Reyes. And those guys at heavyweight aren't as active, unless you fight Miocic, who has the ability to go 25 minutes pretty hard.
Finally, how strong is Khamzat Chimaev?
He's a strong guy. For a little guy, he's very strong.
We saw you having a little tumble with him the day.
For a little guy, he's really strong. I mean, what's he weigh? 190 max? Like, he's a small guy that's very strong in position too. When you wrestle a lot of Russian athletes, they kind of get in this stance where they don't feel like they're trying. But the next thing you know, they throw you over your head. And I felt that from him, right? Like, strong when he grabbed me, but the moment we got back out in space, it was almost like he was relaxed, which was interesting. He's a good prospect. I'm excited about what happens for this kid.
What would you, if you were his advisor now, because he's playing between two weights, would you say concentrate on one or keep your options open? What would you advise him to do?
I would keep my options open because he seemed to make welterweight pretty easy, right? So why not? Dude just wants to fight. But ultimately, I believe that he will make the biggest impact at 170 because he's not the biggest guy, right? He's not all that big. So 170 is probably his natural weight class for right now because he's young. I would concentrate on becoming champion there if that's a possibility before chasing Adesanya because Adesanya is much bigger than Chimaev.
DC, it's been a pleasure, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Always fun.
Enjoy the weekend.